My name is Karen Garcia. I'm 18 years old and I go to Magnolia High School in Anaheim, California. I think growing up means finally being independent in a good way and a bad way. It's no longer my friends are going to do this, all my friends are going to one college. Is that going to help me in any way? It's no longer doing things because it's the best for your family or it's the best for people who think they know what's best for you. It's what's best for yourself. I was born in Mexico. My family decided to move here when I was around 2 years old because they thought it would be the best for my future. The people I used to hang out with, we used to think that the most important thing was to have fun and not think of the consequences of what we were doing. And looking back, I almost wish I could do it over because I wish I had realized sooner that school is really important because that basically does determine your future, and just building strong relationships with people that are important, like your parents or your friends, and friends that I guess want to better you. Around the middle of my freshman year, I got placed in swim and water polo on accident, and one of the seniors there came to me and she talked to me, and she basically told me that really it was my choice if I wanted to continue and waste my life on parties and ditching school and getting bad grades, that I could, and nobody could stop me from doing that. And so having someone that really didn't know me give me a piece of advice that was genuinely supportive kind of gave me this idea that if other people can care so much about my future, that I should start caring too. After that, for me, college was basically a must. It was the only way that I was going to be able to better myself. Truthfully, when I was younger, when I was a freshman, a sophomore, I didn't actually think that not having papers was this big issue, but as I started to grow up, it kind of hit me that I can't work because I don't have a work permit. I don't have a driver's license, so if I ever need to drive in an emergency, it would be illegal. Things like that, like I couldn't sign in a lease for an apartment unless I had someone there who had papers. Something that really has stuck out with me is that I get to talk to someone, especially adults, that ask me about my future, ask me what I want from life, and once I tell them, they think it's great, but once they find out that I don't have papers, it's sort of like, this is kind of the end for me, that after high school, I'm done. I had some counselors and some teachers that really helped me by telling me that, like, this isn't a bad thing, that it should actually motivate me, and I didn't let being undocumented stop me from going to where I want to go. There are thousands of things that I think I should be or that others think I should be, and I'm not any of them. And I don't think anyone else should see me as any of that.
Hey MTV, welcome to my crib. Nah, nah, nah. Hey, I'm Grace Osimo, I'm 18 years old, and I'm from Monrovia, California. So the question is, what does it mean to grow up? I really don't think that we're done growing up. I think every day we learn new things, and the older we get, the wiser we get. And the older we are, we know more. Well, that's not entirely true. My generation was blessed with technology. We probably know a little bit more about the iPhone than the old folk, but I feel like we're not done learning. So if I were to stand here and be like, yeah, growing up I learned all this stuff, and I did grow up a lot. Like, obviously I've learned how to walk, read, and all that type of stuff, and I've created a base reality and what's gonna be the past 18 years we've created when I was younger, or like growing up that time, and from here on out we're just kind of building away from that past. But I don't think we're done growing up. So if I were to sit here and, tell you, I grew so much from this experience, I'm so much wiser, blah, 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 I feel like I just look back in 5 years and be like, haha, like, so dumb. She talks like she knows what she is. Like, I don't. None of us do. I think even grown-ups are still growing up. That question is impossible to answer, because what does it mean to grow up? It means that you get older. But if you were looking for like a deep perspective, like, it's just a bunch of different streams of consciousness, each contradicting the one before them, and it's like you never actually find out until you die and you're with Jesus, because we are always growing up.
My name's Amanda Sheets. I'm 18 years old and I'm from Las Cruces, New Mexico. I was actually adopted from China when I was 1 year old by my mom, who at the time was a single parent. And so when it was time to go pick me up from China, her and my grandma flew over, they got me, and then they flew back. And until I was about 5 or 6, I lived in California. And then at that time, me and my mom packed up all of our things and we headed out to Las Cruces, actually. And I've been here ever since. When I hear the word grow up, I think of the word responsibility. Because when you grow up, you become an adult, and adults have lots of responsibility. I'm not totally afraid of responsibilities, so to say. Like, I take them as they come. If they come at me, it's like, okay, I got this responsibility now. It'll be a little scary, but you just kind of have to plant your feet and stick with it. I have been attending the local Christian school for 13 years of my life, starting from kinder on to 12th. And I have just been blessed by that school and by the kindness I've been shown there. The relationships I've been able to build with not just my peers, but with my teachers, and the relationship I was able to build with God. I think that all those relationships all mixed together have really shaped who I am as a person. And they've really impacted my life as a whole and have made me the person I am today. But it wasn't until my sophomore year of high school that the relationships with my friends I have now have really been able to solidify and have really been able to impact my life as a whole. In sophomore year, we have a retreat, and we went to the mountains and we got close, and we made this pact with each other, and we're like, this year we're gonna get closer as a class. It was kind of the cheesy, yeah, we're going to definitely do it this year, we're going to be that one class that sets the standard. And so, like, you know, I'm sure a few people were just kind of like, is this really going to happen? Is it really going to work out? Starting from that day on, the girls made a big effort to just start singing together. And within, I think, the first month, the girls had all claimed the table, and all of the sophomore girls were just eating there every day. I guess maybe it's the fact that I've had such a good relationship with these guys that it makes me a little fearful of moving on into the future. So maybe it isn't just responsibilities I'm a little afraid of, but it's I'm a little afraid of the change and the fact and the possibility that I may not have such a connecting group as this. I'll never have such a connected group as I do here at my school. But I don't think that will stop me from moving on in my life. And I don't think, because if I know anything, I know that God wouldn't like me to have fear in my life. And so I just gotta keep pressing on, take what's thrown at me, and hope that I trust in Him to lead me down the right path.
Hello, my name is Jacob Montgomery. Most people know me as Monty. I'm 18 years old and I live in Anaheim, California. Growing up doesn't always mean age, but in a different aspect, it means maturing as a person and becoming who you really are, and finding out who you are through other people and the things you do in this world, and what you do to make yourself better as a person. My perspective on growing up is that everything happens for a reason and the best is yet to come. When I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, where I was born missing a thumb on my left hand. At 15 months old, I went to Dallas, Texas to get a hand surgery to have my index finger turned into a thumb, where it would be the first hand surgery ever done, in which they did that procedure by the #1 hand doctor in the entire world. So after living in Phoenix for 6 months, my mom and my dad had broken up, although they were married, and she moved back to Anaheim, California, where she was born, and brought me with her. And we have lived there since. And my parents got a divorce 2 years later for reasons left unsaid. And it never really occurred to me how hard of a toll it would be on me growing up without a dad. Growing up as a kid missing a finger, kids are usually curious about what's going on and what's wrong with your hand and all the stuff that goes along with it. Kids seem to judge and to be kids, exactly what it is. And they make very rude comments and they torment kids. Whether it's a missing finger or some kid has a bad haircut, kids are gonna point that out and kids are gonna make fun of you for it, and I was just included in that. And kids would call me Alien Hand, a cartoon character for having a missing finger, and you know, it took a real big toll on me as a kid. And with my dad not being in the picture and the tormenting and the bullying of my hand all adding up, it really just made me depressed. Or so I thought to myself. I can never do the things I actually wanted to do. I can never go and hang out with friends like I wanted to. and I got into my sophomore year of high school. I had a big ego. I was on a reign, and I just thought everything is going my way, and things slowly started to deteriorate, and they weren't going as how I planned they would be. And I was slowly starting to get attached to girls, and I was falling into the wrong crowd, and I was doing the wrong things, and I one night said, it's over, I can't do this anymore. I had finally given up, and I texted one of my friends, and I said, hey, I love you, and I can't do this anymore. And she talked to me for 4 hours, just talking me out of it, just paragraphs and paragraphs of messages saying that I was worth it. But dealing with those problems and wanting to tackle them myself seemed so, I couldn't do it. It was too hard for me, and everything just seemed to just pile on top of me, and the world started closing in. But if you have the right people in your life and you're happy, then you can tackle all things, because love conquers all. And just happiness is only real when it's shared, and sometimes you just need the right people in your life to do good things. As time went by and things started to get better, I slowly realized that these problems I had in my head were really just small issues that I was able to tackle. And it seems that after one semester of my junior year and a transfer from the old school I went to the current school I go to now, that everything just seemed to fall into place, and reconnected with Jesus Christ. And ever since I brought Jesus back into my life, everything has slowly just started to get better. And I honestly couldn't think of a better thing to say to someone besides time heals all things. And I really mean that when I say that. The time really does heal all things, because a year from now, if I didn't have the right people in my life, I wouldn't be standing in front of this camera telling you that time heals all things. I would be dead right now. It really just is a matter of time before things start to fall into place, and the best has really yet to come. I slowly realized that I could do things that I never could once do because of thought of being judged. And I finally just thought to myself, who cares what other people think? And I did something I've always wanted to do for a long time, and that was make t-shirts. Never would I ever think that I would make t-shirts based around my hand, thinking as though a year earlier I was so emotionally distraught about my hand and how I couldn't stand the fact I was missing a finger. I had finally did it. I just put my hand on a t-shirt, I put Forfing on there, and I put my trademark on it, and I started selling it. I finally just went and did it. And that honestly is a reminder to everyone that you can do anything you ever want to do. And if someone tells you you can't do it, then you look them dead in the eye and you say, I will do whatever I want.
Hello, my name is Orlando Victorine. I am 18 years old and live in Houston, Texas. Growing up to me means being adaptable and being this type of person who can adapt to different situations and be a leader in those situations. I was born in Fort Belvoir, Virginia, which is a small town. And then I lived there for a few months before I moved to Washington, D.C. due to my parents' work. And then we moved again to Maryland, and we stayed there for another few years when my sister was born, before we finally moved to Houston, Texas. Moving around a lot has definitely had an impact on me because it's made me more adaptable. Houston is definitely different from the East, both in temperature and in everything else. And being here has taught me to be more adaptable to different types of people that live here. So when I came to Houston, I started off in the first grade. Elementary school, first through fourth grade, all my teachers hated me. I was a horrible student back then, and then in 5th grade I moved to AML, which is a local school in this area, and it was there that I started taking education more seriously. And then at the 7th grade I moved over to a charter school. When I was transitioning there, when my mom was getting all the paperwork ready, I was like, I do not want to move. I was happy at the school I was going to. I do not want to make new friends, and that was hard. And also I have to get used to the school's values, and they really did bother me a lot. I was like, why do I have to follow these values? What makes them so important that I have to put them above me? I never thought of having values as something as important to me. So those values really did have an impact on me. And I guess after a while, my thoughts of I hate this school changed to this school's okay. So fast forward to the summer before my senior year, I applied to Posse, and Posse is like a support system. It's basically a group of 10 kids they choose for big schools. Their goal is to have this support system throughout the 4 years, and you guys support each other. Like if someone's in trouble, you help them. It's your responsibility as a Posse member. And I guess Posse's changed me because it's taught me what it means to be a leader. It's important to be as a person adaptable, but also as a leader to be adaptable. You have to have that mindset to adapt to different people. And from my perspective so far, throughout the 18 years I've lived now and throughout moving around a lot and going to a charter school and being a posse, I've learned that being adaptable is a really important skill. And life is scary. It's daunting. It's weird because life throws things at you and you don't expect them happening. I think that being an adaptable person means being able to face those fears and being able to take life by the horns. And being adaptable, it makes it a little less scary. It's not as frightening to face the world when you're being adaptable because you're willing to face that straightforward. And that's what I'm preparing for now. That's why I think of it as such as an important thing. And even though I may not know what I want to do in the next 4 years or what's going to happen, I think as long as I'm adaptable and able to move forward, everything will be fine.
Hi, my name's Elliot Sperling. I'm 18. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. My perspective on growing up is taking everything around you in your world and trying to make sense of it all and then figuring out the next step to move forward. As a kid, I wasn't really aware of what it meant to live in New Orleans and what the city meant to me. But then when Hurricane Katrina hit, that's when I really got a sense of who I was as a person and where I came from. I evacuated to Lafayette, Louisiana. I have family there on my mom's side, and when I got there, I really didn't know what I was gonna do. There was a lot of question marks, but it really taught me to move forward and answer life's questions as a 10-year-old. It really helped in my maturity. When I was coming back, getting back into sports was a big thing for me. So it means a lot to me because I love how when you're playing sports and you're on a team, that just like you're a family, like your team is a family. During my junior year, during football season, we had a really good regular season. We went 9-1. In the playoffs, we were looking really good. We were playing a not very good opponent in the first round of the playoffs, and we were fairly certain that we would win, and we ended up losing. It taught me a lot about preparation, being well prepared for whatever life throws at you. And it's not enough just to be aware, you have to be prepared. After the football game, my life was just kind of calm and slow. I didn't really have much going on. And then nothing could have really prepared me for what happened next. My grandparents died about 5 or 6 months apart from each other. That really gave me a deeper appreciation of my friends and my family and just my loved ones, because it taught me that they can all be taken away so quickly and so easily, just like that. All three of these events, me evacuating to Lafayette, my playoff loss, and the death of my grandparents, contributed to growing up because they all made me mature and they all made me take the next step forward.
A lot of people think that Mississippi people and Alabama people are rednecks, but there's a lot more to us than you would actually think. We may get muddy and ride on our four-wheelers all the time and go hunting, but when it comes time to go to the dinner table, you know, we sit down and we put our napkins in our lap. We say please and thank you, yes ma'am, no sir. My name is Mary Cannon Yarbrough. I'm from Louisville, Mississippi, and I'm 18 years old. My perspective on life is that life is hard and it gets messy, but it gets a little bit easier if you decide to learn from every experience instead of just watching life pass you by. We go to annual doctor visits every year, and every single year I gain a little bit more weight, a little bit more weight, a little bit more weight. And I think it was 10th grade that he said, Paige, she's probably going to have gastric bypass surgery. And then I got into the 11th grade, and I was at a pep rally. And I was cheering, we were doing all our stuff, and I get back in the locker room and I change into my regular clothes and I go home and came back to school the next day. And one of my friends said, you know, this girl on our basketball team that used to cheer with you, she made a really ugly comment about you. And I was like, oh, really? Well, what did she say? She said she told the whole basketball team that they needed to have a weight limit on the cheerleading squad because it's just starting to get gross. And that was probably the point in my life where it kind of destroyed me for a little bit. And for a while, I just let it hurt my feelings. But then I decided to do something about it and learn from what she had said. And I started to lose weight. And then I did the weight loss all summer long. The heaviest I'd ever weighed was 293, and I think the lightest I ever weighed was 135. So I got a little bit obsessed with it, and it, just like it had been a problem, the eating had been a problem with me. The not eating started to become a problem with me as well. The experience of actually losing the weight was, I don't know, it was liberating. It was great. I mean, it was just like all this weight that had been on me that I thought was just, it was going to be stuck on me forever. I was stuck with it forever. There was nothing I could do. That's what I'd always told myself. That's why I'd never done anything about it, because I never thought I could actually accomplish something as big as what I actually did. And I changed myself and I bettered myself. So all I have to say to her and to the mean things that she said to me was that I learned from them, and it made me a better person, and it made me who I am. So I don't have anything negative to say about the girl. She helped me. Losing weight and coming back to school, having lost about 130 pounds, all of a sudden I walked into school and nobody knew who I was. My good friends that have seen me all summer knew who I was, but I literally walked down the sidewalk to my school and I could hear people saying, "Who's the new girl? Who's the new girl?" And I was just sitting there smiling like, yeah, that's me. I mean, instead of just staying there and being the big person that I was for the rest of my life and just watching life pass me by, I decided to do something about it. I decided to change myself and make myself a better person instead of letting what that girl said haunt me, I guess you would say. And then after I finally lost all the weight and I'd become a little bit obsessed with it, April 28th happens and bam, everything changes. 2 E5 tornadoes, the biggest tornadoes that had hit the United States that year, last year, hit our little bitty town of Louisville, Mississippi. It destroyed our hospital. People were killed. People were left homeless. You literally walked out of my house and go down my driveway and you could not go down the highway. People thought that I was dead. We were sitting in the bathroom, all of us, all 5 of us in our family, and we were tracking the tornado on the TV, and all of a sudden all the lights turned off as the tornado's right here, and we were just sitting there waiting to see what would happen. And I guess God decided to spare our house, I don't know. But our town really came together and I got to be a part of it. And it was another thing, it was another experience that I had to decide to learn from. And this thing had destroyed our town, but it didn't crush our spirit. We all picked up and we moved on and we helped everybody else. It was just really cool to see like the town and all of my friends and family learning all this stuff from this disaster that had hit us, kind of like I had learned from the weight loss and everything, sort of. Everybody was learning from the experiences we were going through instead of just letting life pass us by, you know. This disaster hit, but we're not going to let it destroy who we are as a town and who we are as people. We're going to learn from it and move on and grow up, I guess you would say.
Hi, my name is Brooklyn Joy Park. I'm 18 years old and I'm from Joplin, Missouri. My perspective on growing up is that it's not easy. It's a bittersweet process of growing independent from your parents and learning the responsibilities of life. As a child, I grew up on a bus. My parents and my aunt and uncle traveled and sang in a group called Crosswalk. But this didn't last forever. My parents decided that it was time for my sister and I to be enrolled in public schools. So my dad decided to take a full-time job back home in a local church, and my mom decided to keep traveling on the road. Because of this separation, problems arose and my parents decided to get a divorce. So I went from living full-time with my dad to full-time with my mom. This transition from living with my dad full-time to living with my mom full-time was not easy by any means. I began to wonder and question why the divorce happened in the first place. And this confusion and these questions led to me being very, very angry. But my 8th grade year, God sent a friend to me that invited me to church one time, to youth group. So I decided, because I wasn't having the greatest time, that I would go and give it a try. And the first night I went and I felt like home, and so I decided to keep coming back. So during this time when I began to come to church more, my mom got remarried, and 2 years later my dad got remarried. So family was a little bit difficult because I got to see my dad more, but I had 4 parents, so it was kind of hard to go from house to house, and I never really felt like I was at home at either of them. So the church became my home, but I never put Christ at the center of my life until the first time I was offered to lead worship for my youth group. And I led worship for my peers And I felt in that moment like I was very close to Jesus, and that was probably the moment where I accepted him and made my faith my own. As I began to study and read my Bible and pray, I learned more and more about who Jesus is and how he thinks of me and who I am because of him. I learned that God is my true father, even when from this divorce and from not seeing my dad and just not knowing how the love of a father could change who I was. And when I accepted Jesus into my life and made him the center of my life, I began to feel the love of a father for the first time. Looking back on the divorce, on the process of learning how to get through my anger and work through that, and then meeting Jesus, I've learned that, life isn't easy, and it is bittersweet. God has placed his hand in the hurt and in the pain, and he's worked through it. And I get to say because of it, I've learned so much, and I've grown up. And God has taught me through all of this that growing up is bittersweet, and it's not easy, but it's definitely worth it.
Hi, my name is AJ Stevens. I'm 18 years old and I live in Olathe, Kansas. My perspective on what it means to grow up is putting others before yourself. For the most part in my childhood, I grew up in the church. As time went on though, we ended up not really going to the church as much. We instead kind of watched live streams from our couch instead of actually going to service. And because of that, I kind of dropped out of the church, and it was kind of empty feeling for me. Going into 8th grade year, is when I started meeting a lot of my friends through football and track. I met a lot of the guys on the team, and we really started to bond, and we ended up becoming really good friends, and they ended up inviting me to their youth group, and because of that I started getting a little bit more involved with church. I ended up meeting a girl during my 8th grade year, and we started talking a lot, and I got to know her really well, and I got to know about her family and her friends, and her family life wasn't too great, and her friends weren't that great of influences on her either, and they caused her to make poor choices in her life. Because of my friends kind of pulling me away with the church and things like that, I knew morally that those were not the right types of choices to make. So I ended up pulling away from her, and because of those actions, she ended up carving my name into her stomach. That moment there was kind of what helped spark my perspective on growing up, because it's difficult when somebody else does something physically to harm themselves just because of your actions. That was kind of eye-opening to me, especially in 8th grade. 6 months after the girl carved my name into her stomach, I ended up going on a mission trip to Arlington, Texas with a couple of my church friends. And we ended up making a VBS down there at one of the apartment complexes. And because of that, I ended up meeting one of the kids there, and his name was Kevin. Over the week, me and Kevin started to hang out a lot, and I got to know him really well, and we bonded. By the end of the week, he ended up telling me that he wanted to give his life to Christ. And that was kind of eye-opening to me, seeing how just taking a week out of my summer to serve these kids and have fun with them really brought them a lot of joy, and even led, for me, one of them to Christ. Coming back from the mission trip, I gained a lot of morals on how I was going to live my life, including selflessness and kindness. I kind of developed those the next coming years in high school by reading my Bible and prayer, and surrounding myself with the right type of people in the community. And that all kind of was put to the test my senior year of track. What made this track season so significant in my life was the previous year we had won state but lost a lot of the talent, and for about half of the season we didn't do too great, and we ended up losing a lot of those meets because of people not wanting to put in the effort. Around the 7th meet of the season, I decided to have a team meeting with a lot of the athletes and tell them that we needed to have a selfless attitude for the team and not towards personal goals. And because of that, we went into our regional meet and tied. And because of that, we ended up having another meeting the next week, trying to rally everyone up on how if we could do what we did at regionals, there's no telling what we could do at state, and that we could end up getting a back-to-back state championship, almost as if we were a giant family, and we put it all on the line and we ended up winning another state championship. Seeing a group of people just putting others above themselves and really just laying it down on the line just really motivated me, and all these events kind of taking place in my life kind of shaped this value of putting others before myself. And to me, I find this extremely important because it kind of developed who I am now and what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. You know, without these events, I don't think I'd be doing what I'm doing today.
Hi, my name is Peyton Esmu Jones. I'm 18 years old and I live in Newport Beach, California. My perspective on growing up is that it's much more of a mental and spiritual growth than necessarily a physical one. I think the mark of maturity doesn't matter on what age you are. It's formed through your experiences in life, and when you realize that this world is much more about other people than yourself. I am somewhat of a surprise for my family. I'm 11 years younger than both of my siblings. So as they were growing up, I kind of grew up alongside them, but my real mark of growing up was when I was diagnosed with malignant fibrocystic which is a soft tissue sarcoma or cancer, when I was in first grade. That experience forced me to grow up in a sense, but not in a bad way. I experienced a side of life that most 7-year-olds don't. I got to really learn how to appreciate life and realize that this life had a lot more to do with than just myself. A few years later, in my 7th grade year, a good friend of mine, Zach Morbido, passed away from a relapse of his cancer battle. And walking away from his funeral was definitely a big mark of maturity and of me growing up, because I realized the importance of life and how grateful I need to be for it. His story and his support of me through my treatment, as well as his funeral, really inspired me to give back and to go into volunteer work in my freshman year, to volunteering especially for a camp. And through that experience, it is awesome. I'm a counselor for girls between the ages of 3 and 7, and they're little fireballs and I love them. And at the end of the week, we do something really spectacular. It's a campfire and everyone gets to do their dedications, whether that be to their family, to their sibling who was struggling with cancer, or someone who had passed away. And that experience really opened my eyes to every kid, from the youngest to the oldest, had experienced so much in their life, but they weren't angry about it. They used it as a tool for growth and a tool for appreciation of life. I really got to see everyone caring for one another and putting themselves second. And that changed my perspective not only on growing up, but also in life. And it inspired me to change the way I looked at people and the way I really cared for others. For myself, I definitely believe I have a lot more growing up to do, and I'm excited for what this life holds, because I know that this life is definitely fleeting and nothing is permanent or set in stone. So I'm going to live this life as I believe the best I can.
My name is Anders Borg. I'm 18 years old and I'm from Dundee, Oregon. And what growing up means to me is gaining experience and knowledge of the world, figuring out what you want to do, who you are, and how you want to have an impact on other people's lives. Growing up in my family, we had family dinners every week, and we would take a lot of trips and go camping a lot. On one of these trips, we went down to Southern California to visit my grandma, and she took me to an air museum. And that really sparked interest in aviation for me. And I knew that I wanted to fly and get in a plane at some time in my life and just fly, because that's what I love to do. And I had the opportunity when I was 15. I went to Flight Academy up in Ephrata, Washington. This Flight Academy was a week-long endeavor, and before I could solo, I had to get 3 perfect landings down. And because of weather, we had some problems and we were grounded and we couldn't fly. And I was frustrated that I wasn't going to be able to solo. But finally, the last day before we went home, the weather let up and I got my 3 perfect landings down. And my flight instructor hopped out and he said, "Okay, go for it." So I took off, I was taking off. Then it came over me that I was flying by myself and I was living my dream with nobody around me, My flight instructor was on the radio, and the feeling was just surreal. It was amazing. So I was coming in, I landed. I hear on the radio my flight instructor, he's like, "Oh, great job, Anders." And I heard about 3 other flight instructors say, "Great job." And I knew that I wanted to fly for the rest of my life, no matter how hard it was, no matter how much work. I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to become a flight instructor eventually and have an impact like that on somebody else's life. 2 years later, I got a job when I was 17 at a local airport here in Oregon, and I was fueling planes, detailing planes. I remember one specific night I was working. It was late at night. It was pouring down rain. I was soaked, and a pilot needed to get out of there really quick to be pulled out of the hangar. But because of problems with our equipment, the weather, and his plane, he ended up not leaving that night. And I was saying what I could to try and make myself and him feel a little better. And he was like, "No, it's okay." And he just started talking to me about flying. And he said to me, "If you figure out what you want to do and you start doing it, it's going to be really hard at some times, but if you really work towards it and dedicate your life towards it, it's going to be worth it in the end." What he said really motivated me and made me realize that I'm dedicated, I'm a hard worker, I'm willing to get things done, and I can do this. And I know that I can go into my future knowing who I am and who I have become.
Hi, my name is Darian Bethena. I am 18 years old and I live in Andover, Massachusetts. For me, growing up has been all about learning the right thing to think, the right thing to say, the right thing to do. And that's been difficult because a lot of the times we learn those things from ourselves or from other people through difficult circumstances. But my faith has always taught me that the right thing to think, the right thing to say, and the right thing to do is the most important thing that we need to know. One of those experiences was in my 3rd grade math classroom. I had always been very good at math, and before this point, I had never really had any difficulty with any of the math problems that we had gone over before. But there was this one problem that stumped me. But while my friends were solving this problem and moving on, I was getting more and more frustrated. Eventually, I went to my teacher, and she said, "Move on." It was something new for me. I had never really had to move on from a math problem before without solving it, but I did. And a little bit later, we were talking about something else, and suddenly the answer came to me. But I had this moment of understanding, and I told my teacher, and she said, "Why don't you go find that problem and fill it out?" And doing that gave me immense satisfaction. But this taught me that I really have to think about the way I think. My teacher taught me that frustration is not going to help. And it was very easy for me to let frustration get the better of me because I had very rarely been frustrated with a math problem before. But this also affected the way that I learned. It taught me that I need to ask for help before I really need it. And that has helped me learn so much more than I otherwise would have. Outside of the classroom, I really love to play soccer. It's been a passion of mine since I was really young. But I remember this one time in 6th grade, we're out on the soccer field and I'm one of the better players because I've been playing a lot longer, and that's not saying much, but it was a source of pride for me. We were scrimmaging against one of the older teams and getting frustrated because of it. And again, I was somehow letting my frustration get the better of me. The other team had just scored a goal, and being the cocky 6th grader that I was, I went over to my goalkeeper and said, "Hey, help me out a bit. Can't do this all on my own." I can't begin to say how ashamed I am that I said that, but at the time, I didn't think twice about it. But my coach did. He sat me for the rest of the scrimmage. Afterward, I talked to him, I talked to my parents, and I realized the importance of not only good words, but good words that reflect good thoughts. Ever since that moment, I've always focused on being a really positive member of any group, any team. So those first 2 experiences taught me a lot about good thoughts and good words, but one experience that taught me a lot about good deeds was a trip I took to Russia. Live with a host family in their house and take classes in a Russian language school. And that experience really allowed me to use the knowledge that I had gained to practice good thoughts, good words, and eventually good deeds. Because living kind of on my own allowed me to not only do things on my own, but also think, interact with people on my own, in my own way. You know, the first thing people kind of talk about when they talk about people living on their own is, oh, you have to do your own laundry, you have to do your own chores. And that's true, you have to do those things on your own, you have to do those things for yourself. But you also have to think for yourself. You have to take experiences, take things that you see, and analyze them and judge them for yourself with very little outside input. Learning how to judge the things that I was seeing and how to analyze the things that I was seeing was one of the biggest tests of all. Knowing how to keep those good thoughts and good words in my head so that I could choose good deeds. I had a lot of time on my own to think about myself and how I fit into that. Being able to kind of apply myself, apply those things that I had learned. So those 3 moments, those 3 learning experiences were kind of the leaps and bounds in helping me grow up. There were moments that I had where I could point to and say, you know, this has helped me grow up. But there were times in between those experiences too, where, you know, I just had time to myself to think about the lessons I had learned. The most important part is that we've grown up when we're comfortable enough and confident in our own judgment to think, say, and act for ourselves, to choose good thoughts, good words, and good deeds consistently over others.
Hi, I'm Michael Flaspolar. I'm 18 years old and I'm from Schenectady, New York. And my perspective on growing up is that it's not your age that dictates when you're an adult, but it's when you mentally and emotionally hit that point, cross that threshold in your life where you blossom into an adult. So I was born in Reno, Nevada, and I moved here to Schenectady, New York when I was around 3. As far as Schenectady goes, I love it here. It's basically all I know. Where I really grew was the schooling. And I kind of love-hate relationship with the schooling. The education was great, the education was fine. Doesn't mean I was the best student, but it was tolerable. What wasn't tolerable were the kids. I was bullied constantly, especially in middle school. For me, middle school were the 3 hardest years of my life. I feel like every day I'd come home crying. Every day I was being picked on. I'd be in the principal's office or the counselor's office 3 times a week. And it just seems like sometimes I had no place to turn for positivity. And it was really hard to find positive reinforcement about myself wherever I would go. So on top of middle school, tensions were rising in my house, and my parents decided to separate when I was in 8th grade. And even though at first I was really disappointed, it ended up being the best decision just because the tension went down considerably. So once middle school and the separation were mostly behind me, I was going into high school. I was going into freshman year. And you know, freshman year is a new start for me. We had 2 middle schools going into a high school. So 2/3 of the kids I didn't know, which means that I could pretty much start new. I looked around for new people to hang out with, and I found a group, and that was the wrong group. It was a group that was involved with drugs and alcohol, and because I wanted relationships, I wanted friendships, I wanted to be liked, I wanted just not to be made fun of, I ended up going along with the crowd and experimenting with drugs and alcohol. Basically, what became of me was just me finding people who actually enjoyed being around me and people who wouldn't make fun of me. So at the time, I didn't feel like it was necessarily eating my soul away or anything like that. And I didn't even think about it like that. I thought that this was my one chance to have friends, and that no matter what the cost is, that I should do what I could to still be accepted by these people. Fast forward to the end of my junior year of high school, and I was getting involved a little bit more in my local church. I was starting to become friends with some of the people there. They invited me to a youth camp that they were going to, and I went. And I made the conscious decision myself to put the phone away and to see what I could get out of the week. And I go up there. It was kind of the perfect storm. I was in this isolated area with these people where their goal was to bring people closer to Jesus. And that is really what happened with me. Is at the end of that week, I told myself that I was going to give it a try with God, and that I was going to try to become a better Christian. And so with this summer camp, I really decided at the end of it, I really said, I'm going to give this a try for real this time. So looking back between middle school, my parents separating, me hanging out with the wrong crowd, and then me coming to Jesus, I feel like all these 4 events really pushed me across the threshold to becoming an adult. All those situations, in one way or another, helped me mature, helped me grow into the person I am now. And honestly, I wouldn't change anything about these situations because it made me grow into who I am today.
Hi, my name is Grace Scarpino. I'm 18 years old. I'm from Cedar Knolls, New Jersey. And my perspective on growing up is that I don't want to, and I'm not ready at all. I think growing up is something that everyone has to do, but I feel like I'm the only one that feels like they don't want to. Knowing that I have to leave my friends was like so hard, especially because I've been so involved with like theater, and I was so close to my teachers and everything. It's just so hard to move on to like a bigger school and meet all new people, like people that I don't even know anymore. And I went to college orientation and cried the entire time, and I felt like so uncomfortable. And it was really hard because I see like all these people, all these students like my exact age, same situation, so comfortable, and they're so excited to be there, and they're learning and they're doing all these great things, and I'm there like in the corner crying by myself. It's very hard to know that I have to move on and grow up and start figuring out what I want to do with the rest of my life. Pretty easy growing up. I mean, I went to like public school. It wasn't like anything different. Everything was just like normal family, normal life pretty much. But school was always kind of tough for me. Like as much as I did get good grades and like I tried hard, tests and like things like that were always a struggle for me. There's a lot of pressure that comes with going to school every day, especially as a kid, because you know, you're young and all you want to do is just go out and play and have a good time with friends, and it's hard to finally realize that you have to like sit down, take this test, pass this class, and do all these things to make you get into college and stuff when you're not ready to. It's so weird to know that we have to go to college and figure out exactly what we want to do with our lives, when just a few months ago I was still like, you know, raising my hand to go to the bathroom and asking the teacher for permission to leave the room. So how you expect me to go from that and then a couple months later, you know, figure out my life? So not only did I have to deal with the pressures of taking tests and like actually doing well in school, but I had to deal with a lot of social problems with a lot of groups of friends, and that I think was the hardest part for me. I had a set group of friends and we would do everything together. 6th grade, I got into my first fight with one of the girls. 7th grade, I got into a fight with another one of the girls. It was always like constant where I would be getting into fights, not physical, but verbal arguments through text. So being that I've had a lot of problems with friends, it's hard to get out of that. So finally I was like, all right, I'm gonna join theater, and I made all these new friends, and I had this core group of friends junior year, and we had like a whole name and everything and a group chat, and it was great. It's hard to know that I have to move on and leave them. You know, I have all these friends that are moving on just the same as me, but they're all so excited and they're all doing all these great things for college, and here I am feeling like I don't want to go. Feel like I'm the only one that feels like this. My boyfriend Marty and I are going to the same school. He's been there for 2 years and I'm just starting out. So because he's been going there for so long, he knows people, he knows the program that I'm going into, he knows the school, theater, everything. So it's going to be a lot easier for me to get involved and get in there and start doing things within the school.
And as scared as I am about everything and how nervous I am about going to a new school, I think it's a big relief that he's there for me, and he's there to help me and make sure that everything's going to be okay for college. I regret a lot, not fixing the friendships that I had and not being as open in friendships and not being myself and not taking care of myself, always making sure that I was the best for every single person. There's a lot of things I think you need to learn in college, your major, everything, but I think one of them is to find out who you are as a person. Forget about all the high school drama, forget about all the middle school drama, everything that happened before, and just focus on yourself. And that's been a real struggle for me, but I think going into college and learning new things will help me, find out who I am.
Hi, I'm Janet Torres. I'm 18 years old. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and my perspective on growing up is experiencing new things, whether it's good or bad, and learning from everything you do, owning up to what you do, and finding a better way to move forward in life. As a kid growing up, I had thought that my family was pretty perfect in a way. My mom and dad were together, and they were taking care of me and my 5 other siblings. But eventually, as I got older, things started to just fall apart within my family. My dad was, he is an alcoholic, and my mom didn't want that at all, but he didn't really care what she wanted in a way. So I started just really seeing just how my family was. So with my dad being an alcoholic, it definitely affected my family a lot. As he was in and out of our lives, we didn't really have that fatherly figure in our lives, feeling loved and protected as well. I think a dad plays a big role in a young woman's life, of knowing that like she doesn't need a man, and also feeling protected and knowing that like when we are in a relationship, like we also have our dad there for us, and he loved us, first, My mom being just a single mom and raising 6 kids, mainly on her own throughout the years, was really hard. And so like we also didn't really have an emotional type of connection with our mom. At least I didn't have a emotional connection with my mom. Also, just like I saw that my sisters as well, but I think for myself, like that's where it all started, where I started being depressed because I saw just how my family broke apart. Like when you see something so great and then it falls apart, that is very heartbreaking. So that's where like depression started, and I started just feeling like there was no hope in life, and I started just feeling very insecure about myself since my dad wasn't there for me, and I felt like he didn't love me. I felt like no guy would, but at the same time I still tried to seek that love from a guy, and I would do anything for it. I was the type that like I would share my story and what I've been through with a guy because I wanted them to feel sorry for me, and I thought that would make them care more, and I thought that would make them stay in my life, but it didn't. And so that also broke me as well. It definitely led more into depression, and I dealt with cutting, and I dealt with bulimia, just feeling very insecure about myself and not knowing just who I was, and always trying to just always comparing myself to other girls as well. So that just put me more in depression as well. Dealing with that, it led to just being suicidal, and I just really came to a point where I felt like there was no purpose in life. Like we have dreams and whatever, but it's hard to even get to those dreams. So definitely realizing that, I felt like there was no hope in life. And I remember my cousin, she came to my house, and I was feeling very suicidal, but she didn't know how I was feeling. And she invited me to church. And I remember when I got there, this woman was preaching, and everything she was saying was exactly how I felt. She was talking about forgiveness, and she was talking about how if you don't forgive the people who hurt you, and you don't forgive yourself, then you're not gonna be able to move on in life. It may seem like you are because you're getting older and years are going by, but you're really not moving on from what's happened in the past. And those things are attached to you. And finally I was like, yeah, like that's me. Like I am holding on to so much, and I can't move on in life. And then she was also just saying how, like, you know, Jesus died on the cross for us, and so you know, he forgave us, so we should be forgiving other people. And I was like, yeah, like, that's true. And also, I think when I heard that he forgave me, it helped me a lot, because I hated myself, and so I couldn't forgive myself either. But knowing that he did, it helped me a lot, and knowing that, like, he still loved me. I remember just going to sleep that night was really different from any other night. I usually would listen to music, and it was like really depressing music, and I would listen to it because I thought that it would help me, and I thought that me crying my eyes out to what the words, to what the lyrics of the song and the music, like, I thought just crying and stuff would help me, but it really didn't. Now that I look back at it, I'm like, that didn't help at all, listening to that music and crying my eyes out every night until I fell asleep. Finally, that night when I came back from the church, I felt really relieved, and I listened to this music, and I'm laying in bed, and I thought I would cry, but I didn't, and I was really at peace. And I was sitting there like, this is really strange. Like, usually when I listen to this music, I cry the whole night, but I didn't. After that, like, whenever I'd wake up, I felt joy, and it was something that was so new to me, but I was very thankful for it. And now, still to this day, I wake up and I'm joyful. And all I can ever say is, yeah, because Jesus, you know, like, I believe that it's because of Jesus being in my life that I have this joy, and I'm able to be just happy in any situation. And some people, you know, they may feel differently. It may be something else, but for me, I believe that it was Christ, and that's where I got my joy from. Looking back at my life, I realized that growing up is experiencing new things, whether it's good or bad. With my family, I thought at first they would be perfect, but it didn't turn out that way. And yeah, they fell apart. And I definitely didn't go about the right way in dealing with that. Yeah, even just dealing with depression and everything, the choices I made within that, I turned to self-harm instead of turning to talking to someone and telling someone, this is what I'm going through, I need help. Yeah, those were definitely the wrong choices that I made growing up, but I don't regret them. I know that everything I went through in my life were for a reason, and going through all of those bad things, it brought me to where I am now, where I know definitely more of what's right and what's wrong. And now that, you know, I realize that, and I realize that the way I'm gonna move forward in life and the right way for me is with Jesus. And I feel like that is who I need to move forward and to be on the right path with.
Hi, my name is Ebony Pugh. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, and I'm 18 years old. Growing up to me is knowing that growing up is inevitable. You have to grow up whether you like it or not. And I feel like as a child, you feel like things are gonna go your way and you're gonna have the perfect life, but growing up shows you that your idea of the perfect life may be tainted. I've had multiple experiences in proving that. In 5th grade, my parents separated, and I had to learn that we were not the perfect family like I thought we were. 6th, 7th grade, I had to grow up really fast, and my dad, he was not really around. He did what he wanted to do, and I had to grow up and fend for my sister and take care of her, and that was a really bold experience for me because I had to step out of my comfort zone and pick her up when I hadn't even picked myself up. We had to start living with my dad's family, my grandparents. We never talked to them in a sense where they were the loving grandparents that took care of the children or the grandchildren. We never really had that relationship. It was a small house. There was not really any room. My dad finally got a house for himself, and we were his children, so basically we had to move in there. It was he didn't have a choice, we didn't have a choice. He couldn't just leave us, was the attitude that he gave off. That was no place for us to be though, because he was still never there. My sister and I took care of ourselves. We went to school and whatever else we had to do because we were still kids, but we had to take care of ourselves. My mom finally got a job after her area of homelessness that she had. She finally thought that everything was going to be okay. We were happy to move in with her. We missed her. Her having this job made us feel like everything was going to be all right, but that's just not what it was. She lost her job. We became homeless, and that was hard for me because I'm now in high school. I need clothes. I have friends that want to come over, and I can't even be a hostess because where can they go? We stayed from motel to motel. I always turned the other cheek. I just left it. I let go, and I let God deal with it, and I let him deal with the depression as well. And that depression was really a struggle because I never wanted my sister to see me in that light. I never wanted her to know that I was hurting. I never wanted her to know that I felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders because no one was around for me, so how can I be around for her? It was moments where I felt like I just didn't want to be here anymore. I didn't want to go on. I didn't want to live on this earth. I knew that I had to be here for my sister. I knew that I had to hold everything together because I was the older sister, and I had to be optimistic about everything, the whole situation, because I knew no matter what, I can't let her feel how I feel, ever. I had to portray that attitude for 6 months. I had to carry that weight for 6 months, and for a child, that's a long time. And my dad finally started coming back into the picture when he realized we're growing up and he's missing out on time and he's missing out on things that he was supposed to be here for. We didn't want to forgive him. We didn't want to forget what he did. We didn't want to accept him back into our lives, but we need that male support. We need the man of the house to step up and be just that. When he sat us down and told us that we were beautiful young women and he had missed out, and we cried together, we shed tears, we prayed, we asked God to put us back together. He had to grow up in himself, in a sense, and he had to realize that he had to be a man for his family, and he had to be the man of the household. Even if him and my mom weren't together, we knew that us 5 were the only ones that were important to us. And he began helping my mom get her life back together and get into the services. Unfortunately, my mother is homeless at this point. We have each other. We are stable as a family. We all love each other, and that is all the support that we need. And I feel like God took me through all these obstacles to show me that this is what growing up looks like, and I'm gonna have to deal with it whether I like it or not. And growing up without him would have been harder than growing up with him, and I think I am blessed to still be here today.
Hi, I'm Sam Murphy. I'm 18 years old and I'm from Highlands Ranch, Colorado. I have a very particular view on growing up. I don't think a person can ever grow up, technically. I think that there's so much knowledge in this world that you shouldn't put a cap on it, and you shouldn't put a cap on kindness or maturity, and that's why I don't think someone can fully grow up. I had a normal childhood, a normal American childhood. I grew up in Colorado. I played sports all the time, had 3 older sisters. I don't know if that's very normal, but around my freshman year of high school, decided to not go to the public school that was by my house. I made a conscious decision to go to a private Christian school. And then around the middle of that freshman year, my parents made a decision to get divorced. They really taught me values and how to be kind in adversity, because during that breakup they had, they were very kind to each other. They're still friends now. They were kind to their children, kind to their friends. They didn't take out what they were going through on others, and that really taught me on what growing up is. And I was going through a tough time in high school. I was with new people, I was making new friends, but it was a new surrounding, new element, and I was really out of my element. I had gone in public school for my entire education career, and I made the conscious decision to go to a private one. It was different. There was a dress code, and I wasn't really prepared to, wear khakis every day. I was a very good athlete, and so I was on a club team, and I played club basketball. We would have practices daily and tournaments every weekend, basically. But right before tournament season, where you go out of state and play in front of the big colleges and stuff like that, my friend noticed a bump on my leg, and he was worried about me. And then about a week later, my dad noticed the same thing, and he was commenting on how I had a golf ball on my leg. I said, oh, it's just, shin splints or calcification. That's what the trainer at my school told me. And he said, if you don't get checked out, you can't play sports. So immediately I made the decision to get it checked out as soon as possible. It turned out I had to take a hiatus from sports. The doctors made me. They said if you harm your leg at all, we might have to amputate it, and I had to basically stop my life. We go under the knife and we check if the bump is malignant or not. And when I woke up from the surgery, I found out that I had Ewing sarcoma. And after I realized I had cancer, basically I rolled right into chemotherapy. Throughout that year, I really didn't have any interactions with my teammates or my friends, and so I had to live the games and live the day-to-day life at school through social media, and I wasn't really able to come in contact with that many people just for my health and for my safety. And I missed out on a bunch of football games, a bunch of basketball games, a bunch of funny class moments, a bunch of proms, and a bunch of homecomings. I didn't get a chance to make that time to go there, because if I got sick from a cold, I would have to be hospitalized. I had to live those moments through social media, and to do that, I'm really grateful because of what I've seen my parents go through, and because of what I've seen other people go through. I knew I could do it with kindness, and I knew I didn't have to do it with hate in my heart, and I could do it with a positive attitude. And it just helped me grow up even more. Being able to go back and, after living vicariously through social media for a year, to be going to classes and being able to go to football games and, being on the bench, even though I wasn't able to play, it was a blessing. Being able to, be a part of friendships again, be able to go to dances and, awkwardly dance not well. Being able to do all those things was a huge blessing, and it made me realize how much I have and how many blessings I have in my life. To be able to come back to, Welcome Arms was a huge, huge impact in my life, that even though I went through adversity, it should change who I am, but it should change for the better, and it should help influence other people to be better too.
My name is Asher Selican, I'm 18 years old, and I'm from Huntington Beach, California. And my perspective on growing up is that it means to become fearless. And the three events that kind of define this for me are my adoption, the breakup I had between me and my first love, and then this trip I took across the country. My adoption proved to me that people who are not afraid to take chances, that those people aren't necessarily scrutinized, and that the best things come from the biggest risks. While I may have been the benefactor of that risk, my parents sort of taught me it really meant sort of looking at something a little bit differently, looking at something as more of an opportunity instead of a challenge. The second thing that fearlessness means, what it means to grow up, is this idea of me breaking up with my first girlfriend. And that was a really pinnacle point in my life, because I was just, sitting on my bed and I was thinking just a bunch of reasons just coming to my head, like, hey, you need to do this, you need to break it off, you need to go and, found film festivals, make a documentary, and do all this stuff. And it literally just flooded my head like, hey, you need to do this. And so I did that, and I took the risk, and it turns out that those risks and being fearless and sort of leaving was sort of an act of fearlessness, and I think that sort of defined my perspective a lot. And then finally this trip, these trips across the country, the production of this film. Karen's perspective was surrounded around this idea of becoming independent, and then moving on from those definitions and those stereotypes. That's something that requires someone to be fearless. On top of that, I also think that Grace Osimo's entire idea that we don't necessarily grow up until we're dead. Going over to Amanda Sheets, she kind of blatantly said this. she's like, I'm not necessarily scared of growing up, it's just I don't want to leave that support group and those connections that I have, and I have to address this fearlessly. And then going back to Monty, he said, follow your dreams fearlessly. Go into Houston, and Orlando says, be adaptable. Well, if you're going to be adaptable, you have to be able to look at a situation and say, I need to be able to change to this so that I can get this done. And that takes fearlessness in another sense. You can go even to New Orleans and Elliott Sperling. To be aware, in my opinion, is one of the most fearless things we can do, because more often than not, we medicate by ignoring. And so going up to Mississippi, don't let life pass you by. If you're gonna take a moment and something's gonna happen, you can't just be sort of scared and be like, oh, I'm not sure if I want this or not. You have to take it, you have to be confident, you have to be fearless about that. Go all the way up to Brooklyn Joy Park. Growing up is bittersweet, but it's worth it. And I think her perspective was so unique in the fact that it actually told us why we have to be fearless. This idea that it's bittersweet, but it's very worth it. If you're fearless, you grow up and you see the worth in life. It might be bittersweet, but it's definitely all worth it. And then to also serve others. Sometimes, I mean, in this society where everything is, you know, instant gratification, it's very hard to serve others when we can easily serve ourselves. And so in that aspect, you have to be able to sort of be fearless of that social awkwardness, and you have to sort of go for it. Going to Peyton, she had cancer, and she had to address that as fearlessly as she could, and she's been one of the most mature people that I've ever known in my life. And I think it's because she had to be fearless so early on. Chasing your dreams, you have to be fearless. That's just what Anders had said as well. Going up to Andover, I think it was very interesting that to learn, you have to actually want to understand, and you have to be fearless to understand the things, even if it's going to be uncomfortable, and to be moral, to understand how to be moral, and just to understand how to approach life the right way. That's something that needs to be done fearlessly. On top of that, Michael Flasspohler, with his entire statement saying that we are preheating to a moment, it kind of goes back to Mary Cannon's idea of, you know, don't let life pass you by. If we're preheating to this moment, if we let that moment pass us by, we know we have a little bit farther to go. But if we actually take that moment and we actually go with it and take it fearlessly, we're actually going to be able to keep going and keep moving forward and find a better way to move forward. And then going on to Grace Scarpino, with all of her social drama, she has the task of being fearless in social drama and being fearless in how she moves on in college. And then going on to Janet, she has had one of the toughest lives. She had to grow up on her own in the sense in that she had to move out and do things for herself, and she had to do it fearlessly, sort of in that unknown. And then going up to Chicago, Ebony was homeless for 6 months. And so with that, I think it's just such an amazing testament to the fact that no matter if you even have a home or if you don't, if this is the hand that life's given you, that you just take it, you run with it, you do it fearlessly, in hopes that something better comes along. And then with Sam, with his cancer, it was incredible the way that he said it. You can be kind to other people through trial and through hard times. And I think that is one of the most fearless things anyone can do. For me, I think my life has been defined by that as well, being fearless. And, you know, if something comes along and it's not looking at something as a huge challenge that I need to accomplish. It's more like, hey, where's the silver lining in that? And for me, that's what I think it means to grow up in America. That common threshold that we have to cross is that threshold of whether we're going to buckle under fear or we're going to actually stand up and do something.